Welcome back to my Slovakia ancestry adventure. This is part 5, Vyšný Medzev, the story of Adam and Anna Orient, born 1854 and 1857. As we follow the road up toward the center of the village, recall my family tree. In the first 4 episodes, we covered the stories of my 4 paternal great-grandparents. In this final episode, we will talk about my maternal great-great-grandparents, Adam Orient and Anna, maiden name, France. Vyšný Medzev is a smaller counterpart to the neighboring Nižný Medzev. It is slightly elevated, extending on an almost straight north-south line toward the Slovak Ore Mountains, an obvious reference to the mining tradition in the region. While combined into one municipality for a few decades of the 20th century, the 2 close neighbors have been distinct villages for the rest of their histories, and are so again today. The Slovak and Hungarian names for the village flow down from the original German name. As I alluded to in the last episode, many German settlers were invited into Hungary following the Mongol invasion of 1241. Though the Mongols were ultimately halted, the Kingdom of Hungary was devastated, so successive Hungarian kings invited settlers into Hungary for repopulation and to re-establish the economy of the kingdom. Many who came were people from more crowded German lands such as the Lower Rhine and Saxony. They were welcomed especially for the skills they brought, ranging from agriculture to mining, metalsmithing, and other trades. The first word in all 3 name forms refers to this being the sibling village higher in elevation. The Metzensifen part comes from a person's name corrupted over many years, as we've seen before, and furthermore presented in the dialect of those who settled here. Those Germans spoke a dialect called Montakisch, and the village name translates into something like the upper village of Mechtild's stream. Let's look at the main pockets of German settlement in the Slovak lands. One was the western part of modern Slovakia in the Bratislava area, also called the Pressburg region after the German name for the city. In central Slovakia was the Hauerland, and in eastern Slovakia the area called Zips in German. We're familiar with this area as the Hungarian county of Spiš, the same area all my other Slovak ancestors came from. Technically, the Metzensifen villages were not within Spiš County. They're close enough to have been included on many period Spiš maps, and often generally lumped into the category of Zipserdeutsch, or Spiš Germans. We see some of the vestiges of the German cultural tradition, even in the sign welcoming us to the village today. It has the Slovak greeting Vitajte, as well as the German Willkommen. It is also on display in this Fellowship Society flag. But be clear, these are mere vestiges of the past. Today, perhaps fewer than 30 people in Vyšný Medzev are speakers of the Montak dialect. There are other signs of the village of the past. Here's an old granary building from the late 1700s, looking in need of some sprucing up. This house, with the 3-window layout in the front, is considered the so-called German style. The village office building is from the 1600s with modification in the 1700s. The village coat of arms is prominently displayed in the face of its side gable, showing a stately Madonna and Child surrounded by branches, with crossed mining hammers above the 3 hills also present in the Slovak coat of arms. We also see the village hall's mansard roof, clearly seen in a pair of photos from the early 1900s. In the upper floor of that building today is a museum, where we were led by Herr Meder, a speaker of Montakisch, as well as Standard German and Slovak. These displays show both the tools that were used for mining as well as the minerals and ores that were mined. The Metzensifeners not only extracted the raw materials, but processed them into finished products. Here are the myriad shovels and other implements made here in what were called hammer mills, a key technology that the German settlers developed in this area. There were even catalogs from which people across the Austro-Hungarian Empire and beyond could order their tools. This small model demonstrates how water power from the surrounding streams was used to trip a hammer system, a kind of rudimentary automated blacksmith. The source of power was water flowing through a sluice and pouring onto the wheel from above. Here is one of the few remaining vintage wheels laid on its side in the yard. Also on display are the torches that the miners used, as well as maps showing all the hammer mills and the string of mines that ran across the slopes north of the village. While mining and the hammer mills were key trades for the Metzenzeifners, metalworking also took the form of locksmithing and provided the tools of other trades such as shoe and boot making that thrived for a time in the village. Of great personal interest to me was this display that focused on shingle making. This was the occupation of my great-great-grandfather Adam Orient, as listed in his children's baptism records. These wooden shingles were used to cover roofs of the time. Herr Mader discusses the final processing steps on this shaving horse, where each rough split shingle was smoothed with a draw knife to create a surface that could protect from the weather for several decades. Shingle making was one of the more common trades in this small village with many and varied craftsmen. In a limited analysis I performed on occupation records in the village in the 1850s and 1880s, somewhere around 15% of the villagers were occupied as shingle makers. A screenshot from the May 2012 Google Maps Street View archive shows the church in not so great condition, but during the ensuing period it has been nicely restored. As we approach the center of the village, I'll mention that I have not found much reference documentation, such as land books, detailed old maps, or census records for Vyšný Medzev, so I can't say anything specific about where my ancestral family lived. We just have the well-maintained church records to gain information, and as we home in on the Church of Mary Magdalene, we'll talk about important events that happened within these walls. Adam Orient, born 15 September 1854, was baptized here, as was Anna France, born 13 March 1857. They were married in this church on the 17th of November 1878, and their first 3 children were also baptized here in 1879, 1881, and 1883. The inside of the church presents a stark contrast between the lightly colored walls and ceiling and the dark stained woodwork of the ornamentation throughout. The flags of the various local Catholic organizations are displayed in the back corner of the church. As we scan around, we can see the ornate carved side altars, main altar, and pulpit. All are appointed with statuary and trimmed in gold. The left or north altar is dedicated to St. John of Nepomuk, and the right or south altar to the Virgin Mary. This collage shows just a few of the artistic details of an age gone by. The church cleaning woman we talked with also showed us this wonderful nativity scene, a Bethlehem as they call it, stored in a side room and ready to be moved out for the Christmas season. The church itself was built in its current form in the 1770s. Some of its contents, such as the main altar acquired from nearby Yasso, are even older and remain a feast for the eyes. There's a modest old pump organ in back of the pews, but as we turn around and look toward the rear of the church, we see this wonderfully ornate pipe organ in the gallery, fabricated in the town of Prešov in the 1700s. But Herr Mader led us right past the organ gallery and continued up the spiral stairs to a special treat, a visit to the belfry. We ascended with a large measure of care, unthwarted by the stone dust, chipped rocks, or an occasional gaping hole in the floorboards. At the top of the spiral stairs, we further climbed to the level of the ceiling of the nave. The bells rang out the time before we made our way up the final set of modern steel stairs. Just before entering the belfry, we were also treated to a view of the old mechanical clockworks, still able to function but replaced by a modern electrical system for everyday use. Finally up to see these wonderful bells. Herr Mader made it a special point to see one of them, which contains the name of an Orient family member, along with others from the village. The inscriptions are in Hungarian, indicating that this bell was dedicated during the period of Magyarization, probably sometime in the last third of the 1800s or later. Shown are the Hungarian form of the town name, Felső Medzev, and the name Orient Mihály, the Hungarian form of the name Michael Orient, written in the typical Hungarian custom of surname first and given name second. Scanning the belfry, keep in mind the louvered slats here. The clockworks were above me and remained so because climbing this ancient ladder exceeded my risk tolerance at the moment. Pleased with our journey, we carefully made our way back down the spiral stairs past this ornate window. In addition to the flights of stairs farther above, we climbed 73 spiral wooden steps. They're numbered, so we didn't even have to count them. Here are the louvers that I just pointed out. As we rise to see the beautiful sky, let's talk about the population situation. The 2023 data show about 550 or so people living in the village. Compared to historical numbers in our 1880 to 1910 focus period, this is rather low. A dramatic decrease in the population happened between 1880 and 1890, but it looks like things started to bounce back, and indeed by 1910 the population was higher than it had been previously. But now let's look at the ethnic German population. Here we see a different story. In 1880, close to 90% of the population of the village was ethnic German. This dropped steadily and precipitously, with fewer than half the raw number of ethnic Germans in the village by 1910, by which time they comprised only about 1/3 of the total village population. These people were moving to America. My Orient ancestors were among them. Adam Orient was the first of all my ancestors from the Slovak lands to come to the United States in 1883. This ship's record shows Adam Orient coming from Obermetzenseifen on a ship called the Westphalia, arriving in New York City on February 8th. Anna Orient and their first 3 children followed in 1886 on a ship called Fulda. It arrived on November 2nd, 1886, only about 1 week after the dedication of the Statue of Liberty. My Orient family ancestors settled in Braddock, Pennsylvania, which I also mentioned in the last episode due to its huge Edgar Thomson steel mill operation, opened in 1875 and still running today. But Adam Orient wasn't a steel mill worker. In the 1900 U.S. Census, Adam and Anna, their first 3 children born in Vyšný Medzev, and 3 additional children were living in Braddock. One of those additional children was Agnes, a daughter born in 1894, who would become my great-grandmother. Adam was listed as a day laborer. By the 1910 U.S. Census, 2 of the older children had left the household, and there was 1 final additional new child. Adam was now listed as a merchant in a grocery store. One other interesting thing about the census records from both 1900 and 1910 was that the Orients listed themselves as having come from Germany. They did not list either Austria or Hungary as their birth homeland, although this is certainly the strict truth. Likewise, when Adam became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 1891, he declared that he was renouncing all allegiances and fidelity to the Emperor of Germany. Church records from Vyšný Medzev are well kept, and I have traced Adam and Anna's family connections back sometimes 8 generations. All these individuals were born in Vyšný Medzev, or Obermetzenseifen at the time, yet they still considered themselves Germans. Well, with this, let's wrap up my Slovakia ancestry adventure. I've had a great time sharing this experience with you. I enjoyed all the villages that I visited along the way. And whether my ancestors considered themselves German or Rusin or Slovak, whether Roman or Greek Catholic, whether farmer or day laborer or shingle maker, they all made a brave decision to come to a completely new place and raise their families as Americans. I'm grateful to them and those I've met in my journey. Wonderful and generous people have taught me about Vyšný Medzev, Spišská Teplica, Zavadka, all those in the village offices who provided guidance and often gave me books about their village. I connected with my clan and other wonderful people in Harihoce. It was a pleasure to meet the main archivist in Spišská Kapitula, as well as the archivists in Levoča. Last but not least, I thank my guide Michal Razus, who led me through a successful and fulfilling visit. Allow me to wrap up this series by introducing the newest member of my family tree. This is my grandson. His name is Kirk Novotny. He was born 161 years and a few days after his great-great-great-grandfather Jan Fefra, who in coming to a new life in America gave us our family name. I now ring out this episode and this series. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and look for more to come on this channel.